The rain was relentless that morning, splashing against the cracked sidewalks and drumming a rhythm on the hood of Emily Carter's worn-out coat. Her little boy, Noah, clung to her hand as they navigated the busy street. His cheeks were flushed from the cold, his shoes damp from stepping into too many puddles. Emily barely noticed. Her mind was spinning too fast. She had rehearsed this moment in her head 1,000 times, but now that she was actually on her way to see him, her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear her own thoughts. Inside the glass tower at the heart of the city, the billionaire she was about to confront was most likely sipping espresso in some penthouse office, a man insulated from the storm both outside and in life. She had never spoken to him in person, but she had seen him from afar once, 3 years ago. That was before she knew the truth, before she realized that the stranger she had met briefly in a small-town hospital's waiting room had changed the trajectory of her life forever. She pushed open the revolving glass door, water dripping onto the polished marble floors. Security guards glanced at her threadbare coat, the boy at her side, but she stood tall. "I need to see Nathaniel Grant," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her chest. One guard raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an appointment?" Emily shook her head. "No, but tell him Emily Carter is here. And tell him it's about his son." The words hit the air like a clap of thunder. Heads turned. The guard hesitated, clearly unsure, but something in her unwavering gaze made him pick up the phone. Minutes later, she was being escorted into a private elevator. When the doors slid open, she stepped into an office that looked more like an art gallery than a workplace. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the gray skyline beyond. Behind a massive desk, a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit rose to his feet. Nathaniel Grant was every inch the image from Forbes covers and financial magazines. Sharp jawline, stormy eyes, and the quiet authority of someone who could buy and sell half the city before lunch. He looked at her, and for the first time, Emily saw confusion flash across his features. "Emily Carter," he said slowly. "Do I know you?" Her fingers tightened around Noah's small hand. "Not really," she replied, her voice trembling despite her best effort. "But you should know him." She guided Noah forward. "This is Noah. He's your son." Silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Nathaniel's eyes darted from her face to the boy's and back again. Noah's green eyes so much like his, blinked up at him. "I think there's been some mistake," Nathaniel said, but the words lacked conviction. "There's no mistake," Emily said, her voice firming. 3 years ago, small-town hospital in Ridgeview. I was there for my sister. You were there for a board meeting, you said. We talked. One night. Then you left. I didn't even know your name until I saw you in the news months later." Nathaniel ran a hand through his perfectly combed hair, clearly rattled. "Why come now?" "Because I've tried everything on my own," she admitted. "Noah's been sick. The treatments are expensive. I didn't want your money. I wanted him to know who his father is. I wanted him to have someone when I'm gone, if it comes to that." Her words sliced through the air. Nathaniel's gaze dropped to the boy again, and for the first time, a flicker of something softened in his eyes. "What's wrong with him?" Emily swallowed hard. "A rare heart condition. He's on the list for surgery, but the hospital—" She broke off, blinking rapidly. "They said I have weeks to come up with the rest of the payment, or they'll move him down the list." For a long moment, Nathaniel said nothing. Then, without a word, he walked to his desk, picked up the phone, and spoke into it in a low, clipped tone. When he hung up, he turned back to her. "The payment will be made by the end of today. He'll get the surgery." Emily's knees nearly buckled, but she caught herself. "I'm not here for charity. I know, Nathaniel said quietly. You're here because you care about him. And because maybe you hoped I would, too. The days that followed moved quickly. Nathaniel showed up at the hospital the morning of Noah's surgery, staying in the waiting room for hours. Emily saw him pacing, his normally controlled demeanor cracking under the weight of fear. When the surgeon finally emerged with a smile and said the operation had gone perfectly, Nathaniel exhaled in visible relief, like a man who had been holding his breath for years. After Noah woke, Nathaniel sat by his bed, telling him stories about when he was young, making him laugh until the monitors beeped faster. Emily watched quietly from the corner, seeing her son's face light up in a way she hadn't seen before. Weeks later, when Noah was strong enough to leave the hospital, Nathaniel invited them both to his home. Emily hesitated, but Noah's excitement was impossible to ignore. The mansion was nothing like the cold corporate office. It was warm, filled with sunlight and bookshelves, and a huge kitchen where Nathaniel tried, badly, to make pancakes. As days turned into weeks, Nathaniel became more than just the man who had saved Noah's life. He picked him up from school, taught him chess, even took him fishing at a lake hours away. Emily saw a different side of him, one that the world, with all its headlines and assumptions, had never seen. One evening, as they stood on Nathaniel's balcony watching the city lights flicker, Emily said softly, "I never wanted to disrupt your life." Nathaniel looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Emily, you didn't disrupt it. You gave it meaning." For a man who had everything, Nathaniel Grant had never known what it felt like to be truly needed. Not for his money, but for his presence, his care, his love. And for Emily, who had carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, the burden finally felt lighter. Months later, on Noah's birthday, Nathaniel surprised them both with an adoption cake, not to replace Emily, but to officially become Noah's father in every sense. Noah's eyes brimmed with tears as he hugged him tightly. And as the three of them stood there, candles flickering, Emily realized that what had started as a confrontation in a cold office had turned into something she never thought possible: a family. Not perfect, not simple, but built on kindness, sacrifice, and the quiet power of showing up when it mattered most. The billionaire and the single mother had both walked into that moment with walls around their hearts. But for Noah, for the little boy who had brought them together, those walls had come tumbling down, replaced by something stronger than wealth or fear: love.